So it's great we have an opportunity to have kind of this little fireside chat under the warm lights. So let's get right into it. I think it's kind of fun that we have Shane here, who was on stage at F8. And my first question is, like, where are we in the hype cycle of chatbots? I think that 2016 F8 was kind of like the shot was fired. There were chatbots before, certainly, but that was the first time it became talked about and something that, hey, maybe this will actually reach consumers and not just kind of the techie side of things.
Yeah, I think we're coming out of it. It's definitely like up, died 2017, 18, coming back. For good experiences and a lot of marketing, just the things to get started, like the marketing type funnel experiences are actually working pretty well, really well. And then a lot of the scripted bots that were, always failing over and that kind of thing, like everyone just rushed to build a bunch of bots, and that's going to kind of fade away, and I think it's fading away. But there are many benefits to having a frictionless experience without a login, without a password, that's in messaging, that's persistent, that it can start on the web and go to your device, and like that is a massive benefit. And so I also think people underestimated how hard it was to build conversations. Once you get into the space, it's a whole different world, and it's not like it's harder, you need to be smarter. It's that it's fundamentally different than web and apps. Errors are a part of it. The web world, you would QA something, and A, B, C, D, E would be the buttons you would click, and you'd be like, it works. In this world, it works 64% of the time. And that's like, people are freaking out. Like, you spent your whole life in digital, and now half the experience is broke. I think that's a different experience. There's a lot of integration and work that needed to be done, and people are starting to grasp it. And so I think we're coming out of the cycle now. And in the last 9 months, Apple, WhatsApp, Instagram in 2 months, Google Assistant, Alexa are opening up faster. All those platforms are opening up. I mean, and Messenger just got us ready on the tool side, but the real opportunity is still about to open up.
Yeah, I think we're in the prove it phase now for a lot of big brands that have understood at a high level kind of what some of the benefits are, but now it's picking what specific problem they want to address at their business, whether it's reducing call center time or increasing sales or whatever it is. And then I think it's does this work, and does this stand up to some of the other solutions that we have? So we're definitely past the hype. Now it's actual practical, like, are these chatbot experiences working, and do our customers like them?
I like that, the prove it stage.
Prove it. Yep. All the test budgets have dried up. Like, they built their bot, and we got people chatting with it. Now, what do we do? And anyway, it's an interesting phase where I think businesses are starting to pick what they want to solve, and a lot of what I've seen is customer service. It's kind of what we thought bots would solve in the beginning, and I'm seeing a lot of folks that started off wanting to do more with sales and product discovery, and it's all customer service.
What do you think kind of started all the excitement? Like, I ran a BBS when I was a teenager, and we had a dumb chatbot. So what was different that kicked off this wave of potential that people were thinking about? Was it some technological change? Was it the availability of a channel, some sort of critical mass? What do you guys think made it begin, at least again, in 2016?
I mean, everyone always likes to act like it's some AI breakthrough. I don't think that's happened, actually. I think it's been just a accumulation of a lot of technologies over time. It's just big numbers. I always like to talk about social. Our first company was social in 07, 08. Social at that time was no one was on social. Everyone thought social was a joke. There's 40 million people on it. We're trying to convince brands to be on it because it's the future. And everyone's like, what do I do once I get on it? This space was hey, there's a billion people sitting here. We're about to open up the doors. Be careful. Don't mess it up. Don't screw up the space. But I think there's a lot of people that are on these channels. And I also believe everyone using the platforms already uses it with their friends, and they really like it, use it all day, and they understand it. So it's kind of those two came together with the platforms are massive. they haven't allowed businesses on it. There's a gate, and they're opening the gate, and everyone kind of understood it. So I think those kind of came together. And then underneath that, you had to have like, the right NLU technology and all that kind of fancy stuff. But I don't think that's really what drove it at all.
I think it's more, we're so attached to our phones and these small screens that the experience of how we're sharing things with friends, how we're learning about products, how we're just sort of navigating the internet has evolved from kind of the slide I showed, like websites to apps that now nobody really wants to download an app anymore, to it's just sort of it's the best user experience interface, and every successful, well, not every, but most apps have a messaging feature as part of it. So it's sort of all these elements have gotten to us where today I think the preferred experience is to have some kind of a flowing back and forth conversation.
I was gonna say, I don't know if the best experience is always conversational. I'll challenge that, but I do think what you're hitting on is what drove this space, I guess, actually, is app download rates. No one downloads apps. Every brand you talk to, it's like 4%, 3%, and they spent 8 years and $50 million building an app, and they're like, oh shit, that's where they're at right now. They're like, oh, anything will help. And then the APIs they built for the app allowed them to do distributed commerce. So now they spend all this time building their app with APIs, and those APIs can be used in the space. And I think that's played a big piece of they need a new channel because the channel they have is not really working.
So I think that's definitely an interesting perspective. Is it a matter of something was broken, there were too many apps, or what caused the fatigue? What made people almost stop exploring? Did it take too long to download? Is everything so fast now that no one's waiting?
It takes too long to download. It eats up your battery. It eats up the space on your phone. And I always come up with the example of, just anywhere around New York, you go into some salad place and they're like, download our app. You could have saved time, save your wait in line. No one's downloading that app. But if there was a simple chatbot experience, maybe I would think about messaging the business ahead and getting my salad pre-made that way. But I just, there's no one really, the instinct to just, I'll download the app. It's just not there. And I think the stat is most of us use 6 apps or 10 apps or something on a regular basis anyway. And no one wants to kind of add to that clutter anymore.
So we're here in 2019 and the hype cycle's gone up and down, and there's still brands that are very interested in the space, but how are they different and how are they working differently than 2-3 years ago?
What we see, and we're focused on large enterprise customers, and even the reason we're here today as Conversocial, not just Assist, and we decided to merge companies and kind of do it together, was the CXO, the head of customer experience, the CMO is turning into that. The CMO and the CDO are working together, and the service team's coming in. And I think aligning that top level to, we need to provide the best customer experience in this one channel, it's not about one or the other, is the biggest shift that they're starting to recognize in my mind at the top. And that's a huge shift, because in the past it was the social media team, someone would go whip up a thing in a corner and no one really knew what it was, and then it was in a different channel, and that's how we ended up with 19 Twitter handles and 14 Facebook pages. And I think I hope that's not going to happen again, that it'll be a core brand account that can bring the right answer in the right department to you, not you're going to have to go find another channel to talk to the brand. And I think that's a different perspective than the test and iterate phase from even 3 years ago, when it was someone just whipping up a bot in the corner.
I'll bring up this example. It actually hits home for the BetaWorks team, but Dirty Lemon. So I think there's businesses now that are launching with this kind of text first approach, and Dirty Lemon is high-end flavored water that you can get delivered via text. Their whole website, if you go to it, directs you to kind of initiate the conversation and buy this water via text. They acquired a BetaWorks company, Poncho, which when I started this was regarded as the best bot out there, the Poncho weather bot. And that team now works at Dirty Lemon, and they acquired the team, not because of this great Poncho weather bot, but because this team demonstrated they could create really great automated conversations and experiences. And I think I always bring them up because I think it's this cool, it's in line with this direct-to-consumer mega trend that's happening with all of these big brands trying to be the next Casper, trying to be the next Dirty Lemon, whatever it is. And when you try to compete in the direct-to-consumer space, messaging is the most direct, personal way to engage with your customers. So I think we're just going to, as the direct-to-consumer trend continues, we're just going to see more and more folks adopting this one-to-one conversational relationship.
So who is it that you talk to at a brand now to get your foot in the door? If you are an agency or a developer, you want to propose this experience, you mentioned CMO, CXO, is that where you start, or is that where you try to end up? Like, how do you take steps to get that contact and make a case for a bot?
I'll just be honest, our strategy was always a channel partnership strategy. Like, we were first on stage with Facebook, Google, the first to launch the experience with Apple. And being first with the platforms has a lot of advantages, and you can kind of work with them to bring in brands together. And that led to, we think of it as like a digital experience and a customer experience. And so, the head of digital who can work with the head of service can really own a conversational experience together. And so whichever side of that, one side has digital and has the APIs from the app, that might be where you start, and then you bring in the other team. One side might have been building agents and full service over here, but you would love to make this a digital channel that did other things besides just service. And so I think you can kind of go in either one of those doors.
Yeah, so Ryan, you came from Kik, you kind of jumped off from the platform. Was that helpful to you, or were you able to make contacts even without kind of the previous kind of knowledge and relationships?
No, it definitely helped. And I think, a lot of the conversations that I'm having now were warmed up, or some of the same conversations I was having at Kik. And it does tend to be CMO, head of growth, if they're really trying to drive sales or bring in new customers. But now that I'm sort of platform agnostic, my foot in the door is working with guys like Shane. We work with other, Massively, I featured in the deck, working with the...
Why didn't you feature us?
I'm just still getting to know you. Oh. Yeah, I should have, though. And we haven't worked together yet, so...
just wondering.
Yeah.
Octane.
Yeah. And I think so, for me, I've found success getting close to the platforms because they're having the conversations with the big brands, and they're building these bot experiences, and then I kind of come in to help drive adoption of those experiences. So that's been successful for me. But in the rare cases where I'm working directly with a brand or trying to convince a brand to adopt a messaging strategy or a chatbot strategy, it tends to fall into the head of growth, CMO sort of roles.
So those might be the people that can make a good case for the ROI of a bot. What about in terms of creating a bot itself? What are some of the roles at the brand that can really give you the voice of the brand or the domain expertise? Is there a core team hey, we're going to start this bot project. I need 2 people in this role, 1 person in this role. This is going to be the Tiger team. How do you get that rolling to be most successful?
It doesn't really seem to come together with any clear. I think these roles are still being developed, and so somebody from product, somebody from marketing will if it's supposed to capture the voice of the brand, then somebody from marketing has to be involved. But there isn't just a clear scroll through LinkedIn and find the chatbot person or the head of automation. In bigger companies, these roles are starting to evolve, but they're still evolving for sure.
Yeah, and I think it takes a while. And if you look at Sephora, Flowers, companies we've been working with for a while, they started. I think one guy, Tyler, changed his LinkedIn from director of mobile product at Sephora to director of messaging and chatbots. I think that trend is good for the space. And it's really like, so that's like the product manager. There's some kind of copywriter and conversational writer, which is brand specific, that's needed. Usually comes from marketing. And then some kind of person who, like at Flowers, you have a guy who's more engineering focused. You can do the JSON engineering between the APIs and the platform and be able to start plugging stuff in. And so you have like a 3 or 4 person team. You can really do a lot of damage. And then we were focused on the opposite side of him, but I think they're really tightly correlated. We were like, build a great conversational experience, then let's drive a bunch of traffic. And now we're seeing a lot of use cases where you don't even need a conversational experience. You can just do kind of one-off campaigns and traffic to drive good marketing. So then you need someone from the department that knows how to do all the ad buying and all the traffic buying and click the messenger ads and all that. And whichever way you go about it, like that seems like the kind of a buyer of traffic, a copywriter that's brand specific, a product manager, and then someone to do like the engineering to the APIs and systems. And then you can outsource that as well in the engineering piece if you want.
So I think we've seen a lot of articles get posted that almost get clickbaity now, like what are millennials like, how millennials like to text, and Gen Z likes voice. And are those things that you're seeing, are they just manufactured news to drive people trying to open these articles? Like, what are you actually seeing from responses? Like, is there any truth to that? What do you guys think?
I think there was some truth. One of my first big partners I worked with was eBay. They've actually shuttered their ShopBot. They had this. I thought it was a really cool shopping experience. Although eBay maybe is struggling at other levels right now, trying to compete with Amazon. But when we ran, so some of my first click to messenger campaigns for eBay definitely supported this idea that younger people are engaging more with chatbots and clicking on these ads, and that was late 2017. You fast forward to now, doing similar executions for big brands, shopping experiences, and we're seeing actually more engagement and certainly more purchasing happening from older people. So I don't think it's a young person's experience anymore. I mean, Shane put it better, like grandma, like people just prefer texting, and it doesn't matter how old you are. So I do think there's definitely more of a universal appreciation of messaging and bots.
Yeah, and it's the first app everyone learns on their phone, ever. And I think also, like, to be honest, who in here has a bot they love and use every day? Exactly. Look around. No one. Like, that's for real, right? We're at a bot conference and no one loves a bot. I'm not kidding.
No one uses it every day.
And Alexa, yeah, and it's getting there. So I think what's interesting is we have to get a lot better and a lot more great experiences in the space to really start answering these questions. You know, when it's a few brands doing really great stuff, it's like we need to have breakthroughs here. Like, we need to really drive this space as a developer community, be honest about what's not working, and really start finding use cases that people love. You know, like the United use case is something I do every day, but no one knows about it, right? But it's really good. And so it's like, I think better use cases will drive people to be like, I really like this. Word of mouth will happen, and we'll stop saying discovery's the problem, because I don't think discovery's the problem. Great stuff's the problem. And we're in the moment right now where it's like right before all the breakthroughs are going to happen. I think it's the most exciting time to be in the kind of conversational bot space. But there's not one person at a bot conference that loves a bot. You know, like, we need better bots.
Agree, 100%. And I love, like, you brought up the United case. That's your favorite bot. It solves one very specific thing for you and does it really well.
And another one would be, go ahead, sorry.
No, I mean, and I was thinking, someone said Alexa. I mean, let's face it, Alexa gives me my weather every day. Technically, yes, I do chat with that bot every day as I'm getting ready, and it solves that very specific use case for me. But am I really trying to discover new skills and experiences on Alexa? No.
Because it's not making our life better yet. And like right now, everyone's like, it's a discovery problem. I'm like, no, it's a use case problem. And that's what I kept hearing over and over and over on voice. And then, like, I think it's about anticipation, not automation. Everyone's focused on the automation, the natural language, the random access nav, which makes it better. But the magic ones for me, there was actually an airline, KLM, that I used the messenger bot. Had the click to messenger thing on the website. It wasn't an ad follow-up. It was sent to messenger, and then the entire duration of my trip, it was magical. It sent me my boarding pass, which is pretty basic, and then it sent me the area and how to navigate to the gate, and then I landed in Amsterdam. I said, welcome to Amsterdam. Your gate has changed. It's B39, and by the way, go out to the left. And I'm like, helpful. And like it was anticipating what I needed before I needed it. And I think this space, because you have that persistent relationship, the way to not bug people and deliver an amazing experience is to anticipate versus automate. And anticipation over automation is something I think is going to make this space really magical, where everyone's like, I like that. Like, that's what I want more of. And then marketers will ruin it. But like for a while, like, I think that's the opportunity.
So is every great bot essentially the best virtual assistant? Like, is there some other path, or is that it?
What do you mean?
Well, you kind of mentioned that this thing's preempting you. It's as if you have like your admin who's amazing and like is following up on where you are and like what you need. It almost feels like the anticipatory part is like a virtual assistant type function.
Totally. I mean, we're going to get there. Like, I don't know if it's going to be on the brand side or the consumer side. I mean, if you get crazy for a second, it's like, it's an intent-based world, right? So it's not even anticipation, it's in what's in my brain. And Apple calls it bionic computing. So the Google Duplex thing that they did a year ago, when the Google Assistant called the local hair salon, right? And it's like, hey, Google, give me a haircut tomorrow at 1. And it calls, it does random access nav, it just goes, well, can't do that. Can you do 1 o'clock, not 10 o'clock? And because it sounded so much like a human, everyone freaked out. But if you take that a little further and think, everyone today, actually this is a crazy thought that I think about. What if it's not about business bots at all? Whole business is built on business bots. But maybe actually the consumer bots get here before business bots. Because businesses have to feel pain to change. So when search happened, everyone in the world got infinite computing power to search the internet. Every business in the world changed their website. Well, right now, businesses are building all these bots to solve their call center pain point. But if Google Assistant launched the Change My Insurance bot, and it could talk to 10,000 insurance providers at the exact same time, web, call, messaging, doesn't matter, and collapse their call centers with a robot, and get me the best price for my family and my preferences of what I needed for my wife and kids, I would use Google Assistant every day. And if that happens, that's the tipping point. And then consumer bots crush the businesses, and they have to build bots so fast because they're so overwhelmed and getting taken down, because 100 people that ask a Google Assistant to do something that can do 10,000 at the same time is so much traffic that it implodes. And I think that's what we need to build the business.
So it sounds like you're saying we're going to destroy the brands.
No.
They're not going to have a direct brand
make
connection.
them feel pain, and then we're going to have to install real business bots that are solving back and forth. And then it's an intent-based world. You're saying I need an insurance plan. They're saying I need to sell insurance, and all the technical stuff in the middle is gone. And like, I think we'll get to a point of that faster than we think.
I think there's big applications for entertainment and gaming in bots. I think if I can bring something valuable or rewarding or interesting to somebody's inbox every day or on a regular basis, then that to me helps build a really great bot experience, where now I'm looking forward to getting that message. There's one I recommend: don't chat with it unless you want to get really addicted very quickly, but it's this Whack-A-Mole game, which I think was developed by a Facebook Messenger engineer. You find Whack-A-Mole, you chat with it, and it just is pinging you, and it's like whack the mole, like it's quick. It's just you get more points the faster you whack the mole. It's a really simple game, but I think it's addictive and it's interesting because, again, I'm kind of looking forward to that message in my inbox if I'm really getting into the game, which I was for a couple of weeks, and now I had to get rid of it. Other things too, like storytelling bots, choose your own adventure. Like, there's a new way to be entertained through short form messages that I think there's a lot of potential for that. So I don't think it always has to be this business application. I mean, we're obviously thinking about that because that's what we live and breathe, but people that can just get creative and come up with a really fun experience that that the bot has with you, I think there could be, again, really big potential for that.
There's been some explosions on the app, the yarns and the consumer apps that are storytelling. They're books via text.
Are they?
Yeah, they're like the top of the App Store every week.
Oh, nice. But you got to download an app.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
We just launched, actually, with Facebook, we launched the James Patterson book. They built it on our platform. His latest book that he launched was 6 months early on Messenger only.
Oh, nice.
It's actually, I was like, what are we doing? Because I was kind of like against this whole, like, just, it took like a week to read. I'm like, really?
Because it's like short, they're just in the chat
But it's
bubbles.
actually amazing. At any step, you can ask questions about anyone they're talking about in the step. So if like there's a name in the step, you can actually just ask, who is that? What did they do? Where are they from? And the whole thing is this really interactive experience with videos and photos and questions. And at any time, you can ask about anything you're reading about. And it was well received. It's honestly, the traffic was insane. People loved it. Blew my mind. And James Patterson was all over the news doing tours around the country about how he thinks like the future of publishing needed more innovation. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
it's a cool use case.
My son just turned 3, and I think there's some part of human nature that bringing that inner child out, you can just like interrupt and ask questions and like find out more, and that might kind of speak to people in some like primitive way, I think.
Yeah, it was interesting. And the minute you do that, you instantly are like, this is different. And as the moment you feel that, and it actually got it right, and then it showed you like media about it, and I was like, oh, it's cool. And it just changed. And then we used the knife emoji for the like, go to the next chapter. So it was cool. That wasn't my idea.
So what are some techniques to actually make a bot that doesn't fall on its face? Like how do you get enough data where you feel good about releasing it, or do you stage things? Do you get a certain cross section of people? Like what are some ways to kind of increase your chances of success before you kind of open the floodgates to everybody?
A lot of the big branded bots that we worked with in the early stages would just do satisfaction surveys. So you'd complete an interaction with a live agent, or you'd go through a shopping experience, you'd answer a series of questions, and then it's followed up by a simple, like, on a scale of 1 to 5, like, how did you like this experience? And you do that in volume, and it's helpful. So that's one way that we've been trying to get immediate customer feedback in the early stages and then apply it and build a better experience.
I guess one tip I would say is kind of, there's 2 columns of different experiences. There's one that might end in a human and one that doesn't end in a human. I think be very clear on the differences between them, because automation done well that doesn't end in a human is actually delightful and frictionless and fast and amazing. If I believe it's going to end in a human, I hate the automation. I just want to get to the human. And so it's really good to like set expectations of pick one use case. This is a fully automated experience, and just be clear about what it does, and allow it to be able to fail over and adapt, which you have to save context and stuff. So you have to like save the context I learned from 3 steps back, be able to understand that I want to change the city and go change that context. Most of the platforms are tree flow built, so it's hard to do that. And I think you can find a few out there that aren't building tree flows and scripts. And if you are building tree flows and scripts, just keep it very, very simple. But if you're not, I think it's a better customer experience to be able to allow someone to control the experience and in one sentence take out 3 steps, and now there's only 3 more to go versus 6. You create a better experience.
How important do you think, you said that you use the knife emoji, to like, how important do you think are visuals and emojis and GIFs and videos and pictures to sort of building a good bot experience? Because I feel like they're essential.
Yeah, I mean, photos are everything, and media is everything, and the messaging allows for it actually really, really great. And so, whether it's iMessage or Google Assistant or Messenger, voice is a different kind of interesting beast, because there's not visual on the device, but you have multimodal, and you can hand over your device and all that kind of stuff. It gets pretty complex. We've done a lot of the first commerce on Assistant, Alexa, etc. And in the platform, you have to design for voice at the top, and you have to add a visual if you want it, 4 steps that can have images from APIs, and it just gets it takes work.
How do you kind of make a good distinction on when to put up guardrails and really focus people down to choice and have like the UX in the channel with the carousels, buttons, all that, like click quickly what you want versus being more open-ended? Like where do you decide when you should do one versus the other?
We mostly try to guide the user where you want them to go, but at any step can allow them to change your mind and we can understand it. And so that's the biggest piece is right now open-ended stuff and like full just intent at an open-ended level is generally ending in disappointment. But a guided path that can also change as a consumer changes their mind because they can't go back, but it doesn't require you to start over, is very important in building a good experience, and in what we're seeing.
Yeah, I always encourage these brands as they're building these experiences to, have it way more on the side of paths and buttons and carousels than asking people, what do you want to do now, or dead ends too, like where they get to an experience that just there's no button for me to press to continue with the conversation. It's just sort of like leaves me waiting, hanging, I guess, and to avoid those by just always bringing it back, whether it's like a default menu or a series of buttons or something to at least allow that conversation to continue, because most people are not gonna willingly like initiate and keep the conversation going. They'd rather sort of be on the receiving end of that.
So we have Alexa that's voice-driven. We have Google Assistant that's kind of this place in between. You can do either one. And you have Messenger where it's primarily text and you can record, but that's not really kind of meant for that. Do you see Facebook changing? Do you see Alexa changing? Are they all going to be like multimodal? Or how do you see that connection point between voice and text happening on platforms?
It's a shit show. No, we support all, and there are very specific pieces that are similar across all, and there are things that are very, very different. The biggest one is the voice platforms are synchronous, so it's always listening the minute it stops talking, versus the messaging platforms are asynchronous. I can just send it over and I don't have to respond instantly. That's a huge difference in the design of how you design errors. Like one big thing, this is where I don't know if Facebook expands in voice or they stay asynchronous or not. I assume they all expand to just anywhere the intent comes in, they're going to parse it. So whether it's voice, I think lip reading is going to be big. Like voice is actually a friction. It's a pain in the ass. When everything's loud, I just want to be like, and it just like does it. Like lip reading, I think will be huge. Like your iPhone is staring at your face all the time, just analyzing your face. It's usually loud. I could just be like, turn off the lights and it would work. That's another gesture. Like that's another input. And so I don't know really. All I know is the differences between them, and like the synchronous thing today, the errors on messaging, whatever I typed, I usually meant to say it, even if I use shorthand. Google Assistant is the exact opposite. It stops talking. It says, hey, you're like, hey, Google, I want to do something. And then it starts talking. And then I'm like, hey, can you make some breakfast? I really want some eggs and bacon. Oh shit, Google. I really want some flowers. And then it's like eggs and bacon and flowers is the query. And you have to understand that, like, okay, eliminate eggs and bacon if I'm talking about an intent of flowers. That's a whole different mental model of like complexity and just a different customer experience. So I think they're very different, but I think we're going to get to an intent-based world. It doesn't matter where the intent comes from. And then it's going to be parsed, and it happens. We're a little far away. But if we're sending rockets to the moon that can land themselves, like, I have faith.
All right, we're going to have 2 more questions. So what are some techniques that you can use to get information out of people to be helpful as a bot without being like pestering or annoying? Like, are there any sort of language patterns or other techniques that you can mention that have been helpful for you?
So something we're working on now is called the empathy writing. And it's one of my favorite things. So this company in LA is one of our first investors called PSYML. And it's the first like psychometric ML library that understands how people are feeling on a psychometric graph. So there's like empathetic, are you mad, are you happy, how mad are you, etc. And then we're able to actually have different responses called branded learning based on the input of the language into that step, so that you can change if someone's really pissed off in the language. The bot shouldn't say like, hey, welcome, hope you're having a great day, and you're able to change how you're treating people based on how they're feeling. And I think there's cool stuff like that is possible. That is a little more advanced, but I think it's kind of a light into where this space goes. A bot that understands empathy and can really relate with you and understand that kind of stuff is when I think people will start preferring bots over human contact, which is also sad.
That sounds amazing. So the bot would like kind of change its tone if it thinks that you're pissed off, or if
if you're fear, anger, sad, or on the top of the graph, and then you're able to do things based on how that person feels. And it's one of the best libraries in the kind of industry that anything over 3 words, it can basically understand your feeling based on the kind of relationship between the words.
That's great. My thing was this simple 1 to 5 satisfaction survey just to try to get like real feedback.
Sorry.
But that's way better, way better. And I think it speaks to something you said before about like it's more about anticipating. And if you can, if you anticipate a low satisfaction score, like try to intercept and try to change that. Before you get to that survey question by doing something like you just described.
Or even, I don't mean to take you out because I don't think it's you, but I think if we're talking about bothering people with messages, like CSAT surveys are bullshit. Like no one's ever wanted one. I don't want a CSAT survey. It's the brand pushing their own agenda on theirs. They never respond with that stupid gift card they promised. Like Microsoft never responded when they were like, send us an error on the website and we'll let you know when it's fixed. Like I never got an email that it was fixed. And I think if you're in a conversational space, the technologies, this isn't the brand's fault either, the technologies being built should be able to know if you're satisfied or not. The idea of a customer satisfaction survey is crazy if you actually were listening to the customer. It was invented because people quit listening. And now we just bother them with a survey, and that's the message to figure out if they're happy with the message. Like, that's crazy.
All right, one last question. So can you tell me what brands are thinking is important as far as a metric for driving their success? And then what do you actually think is important? I'll start with Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, Shane also mentioned this. So a lot of initial KPIs are like number of messages exchanged. Well, if you're trying to solve a problem elegantly, you actually want the fewest number of messages exchanged. You want to be able to come in and check in for your flight, and it's one button, and I'm so happy with that, how easy that was. So I think that's a very common mistake that these guys are making in the early stages is we want a bot, we want people chatting with it, and the number of messages and back and forth is going to be the measurement of success. That's not it. It's identifying what you want the thing to solve. Ideally, it's like one thing really well, like the United example, and then how many people got through that with the least amount of messages possible. So that tends to come up as a big early mistake, is thinking that engagement and back and forth is a measure of success.
Yeah, it's a good one. Definitely a vanity metric.
Yeah, and to add on to that, it's just keep it really simple. It's every single brand we've worked with. We start Sephora. We love Sephora. It's like one of our best customers. Now we're on multi-platforms, like the Conversation team built 3 years later. When we started, I was like, listen, let's just book a makeover. Like, that's it. There's one API. It's a third-party company. There's no internal resources. You don't need anything. We'll just hit a metric. Your website, I get to the end of the flow. If the time's not available, it like literally makes me start the flow over. Like, we can do better than this. And they were like, no, we need like 3 or 4 or 5 use cases. Like, let's do some more. Let's do some makeup try on, all the stuff that's kind of does now, in-store feedback, etc. And every single brand we've worked with, by the time we launch it, is like, that is so much more work than I thought to do one thing really well. And so I think pick one, knock it out of the park, and make sure you can fully automate the experience. Make sure it's an experience that can be fully automated to complete the goal. Or there's a whole nother realm of great bots that are helping agents be more efficient, which I also think is a whole nother kind of world that makes both the person save time as well as the agent be faster. And that's just a different type angle into the experience if it's a customer service thing versus a marketing-led thing.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Shane and Ryan, for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So we definitely had way more questions than we could ask up here, but really appreciate the audience engagement as well. And if you can corner Ryan and Shane, you might be able to get your questions answered still if they haven't hit it yet. Thanks.